Unless you've been on a deserted island for the last week, you likely know that the Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu and the 3DS emulator Citra have been shut down in an agreement between the developers and Nintendo. Let's talk about why I think this happened and what it means for us today. Then we'll look at how this could impact emulation users in the future. I almost didn't make this video because I felt my opinions would be unpopular with the community, but I think most people knew this was coming, and frankly, I'm shocked anyone is left surprised by it. Let me start off by saying I am 100% pro-emulation and pro-preservation. I ran one of the earliest and most popular arcade game emulation sites back in the 1990s called Insert Coin. I've personally contributed to MAME's development as well as many other projects. But I do have lines that can be crossed, namely piracy in the name of preservation. Profiting over piracy. Piracy where content is still being sold and valued by its owners. Yuzu, the emulator, and the developers behind it were instrumental in the hacking of the Switch. They provided tools to access the Switch in a manner inconsistent with the law, and we'll talk more about that later. Their tools and products not only provided a means to play current generation games, so not preservation, but also the said tools to derive the content in a manner inconsistent with the law. The developers also provided storehouses of these current generation game ROM files in the guise of helping developers make the emulator better, which included the distribution of games not even yet available for purchase. To add insult to injury, the Yuzu developers started taking money for their work. And don't get me wrong, I believe emulator authors should be afforded compensation for their efforts, but we're talking about the Yuzu team getting $30,000 a month via Patreon for a product whose sole purpose is to play current generation, illegally obtained game ROM files. There's more to the story, but at this point you've probably seen a dozen videos already, and I'm just treading over old ground. But I wanted to establish a baseline of what was going on before we talk about how this impacts us going forward. Many people have asked why I don't do emulation videos around Nintendo's hardware, and more specifically, why I don't cover Switch stuff on this channel. Personally, in my own opinion, the emulation of current generation consoles is morally wrong. It doesn't matter what you think of the company. If it were possible to play PS5 or the latest Xbox games on the Steam Deck, Sony or Microsoft will be doing things that would make Nintendo look like a children's choir. As such, me making videos helping people essentially steal or break the law by even ripping their own cartridges isn't what I signed up to do. My dabbling into helping people install what would widely be considered abandonware got my channel a content strike and hobbled my ability to provide content. And I'm not looking for more of that. Yes, emulation is legal. Emulators are legal. So what happened with Yuzu and Citra? This is a rather lengthy legal discussion, so I'll do my best to distill it and keep it short. I am not an attorney or a lawyer. Disclaimer. The DMCA, or the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, is a United States copyright law enacted in 1998 to address the challenges posed by digital technologies to copyright holders and users. The primary objectives of the DMCA include protecting copyrighted material while fostering technological innovation and providing limitations of liability for online service providers. Now, there are several main tenets of this law, but we're really only interested in one of them: anti-circumvention. Section 1201 of the DMCA deals with anti-circumvention measures. It makes it illegal to bypass technological measures that control access to copyrighted material, such as encryption or access methods. The bottom line is, emulating the Switch or the Nintendo 3DS requires a bypass of encryption using privately owned Nintendo keys. The act of such is a violation of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Since there is no way to actually legally obtain a commercial game ROM file from a Switch or a 3DS cartridge, and of course the downloading of ROM files from the internet is in no way able to be made legal, the end product of Yuzu and Citra is considered primarily designed for the bypassing of technological measures, protected under the DMCA. Older game systems, Game Boy, Sega Genesis, GBA, and most older consoles don't require the use of stolen decryption keys, making it a lot harder for Nintendo to leverage the law for their own benefits. You're probably wondering why the Dolphin emulator, which was just recently in the news for being denied placement on Steam, manages to avoid being shut down by Nintendo. The Dolphin developers leveraged a DMCA exemption known as interoperability. Circumvention to achieve interoperability between computer programs and systems, allowing them to work together effectively. If you read the provision carefully, it doesn't appear to me that Dolphin would be eligible for such an exemption, but again, I'm no lawyer. The real reason, in my humble opinion, is more about proof of damages required to successfully prosecute them. Dolphin doesn't emulate anything current. It handles Wii and GameCube, both far removed from what I figure a judge may deem damageable. Yuzu can make no such claims or exemption. Citra perhaps could, since all revenue streams from that product have been closed, but the fact that encryption circumvention and tools were distributed by at least some of the same developers makes it pretty easy to group that product in with Yuzu. Yuzu was making money, a lot of it, and that is a pretty cardinal sin for copyright holders to home in on. They sent spies into the Discord to monitor what the developers were doing and what commercial games they were sharing. It is popular to make Nintendo the villain and Yuzu the heroes of this story, but as always, truth is stranger than fiction. This is inevitably what happens when you turn emulation into a scale operation, making it easy to obtain the keys for, start making money on, and generally flaunting it in the face of the copyright holder. Legal action will take place, and both the written law and the laws of morality were broken here, in my humble opinion. Now you know what happened and where I stand on it. Let's discuss what this means for the present and future of emulation. This particular incident is being touted as the end of emulation because now Nintendo will go after other emulators and shut them down. Nintendo could have gone after Dolphin directly. After all, they are illegally distributing a decryption key for the Nintendo Wii as part of the product. But they haven't. They haven't shut down all the Game Boy or Game Boy Advance emulators. No GameCube emulators have been harmed. No N64 emulators have been taken down. Why is that? Because these emulators fall within the bounds of the law. Nintendo has no legal means of attacking these emulators because they really are legal. None of this changes today or tomorrow. The fact that Nintendo managed to get a current generation game emulator that was violating copyright law taken down doesn't magically give them precedence to go after MGBA or any other legal emulator. They will instead direct their venom at the distributors of their IP and content, and honestly, wouldn't you? Let's not get too uptight about what happened here. Yuzu is dead and gone, true. But what will happen next is what should have been happening all along. Switch emulation will go back underground. The tools will still be created and traded. Firmwares will still be dumped. Nothing will change for the most diehard pirates and emulation aficionados. What will stop is the glorification and edification of this emulator. YouTubers will be less likely to talk about it. The tools won't be brazenly sold on Amazon or eBay. Those who really want it will get what they want. But Nintendo can go back to see no evil, hear no evil mode. In my humble opinion, this emulator should have never been above ground to begin with. Content providers shouldn't have been covering it. Oh, and kudos over to Russ over at Retro Game Corp for admitting he was part of the problem. I wish everybody that promoted Switch emulation would take the same stance. Yuzu and Citra will stop being bundled and packaged with front ends and installer scripts. Most of these developers, like EmuDeck on Steam Deck, aren't going to nuke what you already have, but will stop distributing them in any format going forward. And you can bet the YouTubers will be back showing you how to crowbar these things into the new Switch-free versions. Can't keep a clickbait YouTuber down now, right? Look, if you own a Switch and bought a game and you want to play that game on your Steam Deck, I personally find that morally righteous, and I'm personally upset that this has been made illegal. But Nintendo isn't interested in you. Just like Sony or Universal aren't interested in me ripping my shiny new 4K Ultra HD discs down to my Plex server for my own personal use. If I were uploading those videos to Discord and making $30,000 a month on a player to watch them, said movie studios would probably come after me too. The future of emulation is just fine. It just may not be spoon-fed to you in the easy-to-digest form anymore. The free ride gravy train is over. You'll have to get into the trenches with the rest of us now if you want it bad enough. It has always been like this. I suspect it will always be like this. Nintendo isn't going to stop us. They can't stop us. What they can do is damage control, and that's what this whole thing was about. Damage control. Honestly, I don't think we should begrudge them this one because Nintendo isn't the great Satan. They're just a company whose livelihood is only as good as the brands that they own and can protect. There isn't a single company or individual out there that wouldn't have done the same thing in Nintendo's shoes, and that includes you and me. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Whether you agree or disagree, let's keep it civil down there. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Until next time, take care, everybody.